Hey everyone, it's me, Joe Saiyan. Today we're going to be doing a build video for Dragon Ball Gekishin Squadra, but before we begin I need to point out a couple things. So if you don't want to listen to this intro, please hit the timestamps in the description or comments below to skip ahead. Now, I currently, at the time of recording, am a part of the Squadra Creators Program, copyright of Bird Studio, SHUEISHA, TOEI, Animation, and Bandai Namco Entertainment Incorporated. Now, with that being said, Squadra is a free-to-play MOBA game designed to be played 4v4 competitively, and I am saying that I am by no means a pro. So, I'm not a pro, MOBAs are skill-based, future updates can invalidate the builds, and moving forward, build suggestions and card suggestions and skill suggestions are all only suggestions, and you should adjust as needed based on your skill level at playing this game. Thank you for watching, and let's just go ahead and get right into it. Alright everyone, it is Squadra time again, and today we are going to be going over the build for the Assassin Hit. He's a really good freaking technical unit, if not, albeit a little bit scary in all honesty. Unfortunately, he has been outshined in recent updates by other technical characters, but I still think he's definitely one of the strongest and best technical units that you can actually utilize. So let's just go ahead and see if we can find out a good build for you, and yeah, let's just get into it. So we're going to go through the breakdown of the unit first and foremost, and then we'll go through his skills and card suggestion. So, its passive effect is Fear of Death. It's an ability that gives a debuff status effect that shrinks the field of view for an enemy player. The applies Fear of Death token when hitting an enemy hero unaware of your position is when the token is applied. Apply movement speed down to the enemy and deal extra damage and gain shorter cooldown for Dimensional Infiltration when Fear of Death is stacked. So Dimensional Infiltration is actually his skill 3, which he warps to a set position and enters in alternative spacetime, blah blah blah. Basically, it makes you go invisible and it increase your movement speed. It will be canceled though when you use a rush attack or another skill. But yeah, basically it just makes you invisible and transports you to a different portion of like the area where you can surprise hit the enemy, get it, his name's Hit, and it'll apply the Fear of Death token debuff. But yeah, so let's just go through the rest of his stuff. So rush attack range increases during stealth, so he actually has a higher range of attack when he actually goes into his skill 3 essentially. Skill 1 is his death blow. He fires a giant energy wave in a direction. It actually does penetrate walls and other enemies, of course. And if it is activated during stealth or while in a bush, basically when you're invisible, quote unquote, the effects of stealth or bush will continue. So you can just pop it from the bush and nobody will see you. Like if they don't know it came from the bush that you were in or the cloud coverage, you will not be discovered. Now, skill 2 is an attack that like hits them in a target direction, and it generates a shockwave behind them. Enemy heroes who have not been discovered at the time of activation will be staggered on hit. So essentially, when you go invisible with skill 3 and you hit them with skill 2, they get staggered. Now, his super attack is Assassin's Domain, where he applies Fear of Death, movement speed down, and obscured vision to the enemies around him in his AoE, and applies the same effect as Dimensional Infiltration, which is his skill 3, to himself. Now, if the effects of the Dimensional Infiltration are cancelled, they can be regained if no actions other than movement are performed while he's in this state, essentially. Very good super attack, but let's just go ahead and go take a look at all of this so it makes a little bit more sense, because they have a lot of word jargon in here, and it's much easier just kind of see what it does. Alright, so let's go ahead and go take a look and see what he does exactly. Now, as you can see, we have this nice little ring around us. he can see us when we're in that ring. Now, let's just go ahead and try out skill 1. So, a little bit of a range here. Nice bit of range. Definitely gives you enough that you can poke from a very close-up bush. You can easily see this from, like, the top lane bush. You can definitely hit somebody right away. Does a little bit of damage, not an insane amount of damage. Decent cooldown, around 7 seconds or so. Let's try out level 2. Slightly longer range to the point of where you're actually out of the viewing range. Yep, about 7-second cooldown right there. Much longer range, definitely a lot better at skill 2. Much more usable. Now, skill 3 goes very long way and a wider range increase. You could definitely take advantage of this around your area much more now, and definitely take advantage of the fact that you do hit through walls. Now, notice that because we hit him when he was unaware and couldn't see us, he got the death mark right above his head right there. Let me show you that one more time. So, once again, this can only be applied if you actually hit him when the enemy cannot see us. So if you're in Vegeta's range of view, which is this entire range right here with the purple circle that you see, once you exit that, he can't see you. And now this is the range at which he can see us, which is this tiny little circle. That's why he has this purple circle around him, so that we know that's the borderline of where the enemy can actually see hit. Now take a look at skill 2. So skill 2 has a very short radius at only level 1. Once you get close, though, that's all you do. You just hit him. Now, on the outside, skill 2 doesn't really do anything. See? It's a very short, little amount of range. It doesn't do anything unless you're actually in stealth. At level 2, you actually have quite a bit of range there, and as you can see, once you hit the enemy, it pops out a shockwave right behind them. This could be useful for defeating enemies that they're trying, like a mini-boss, like they're trying to attack. You can hit the mini-boss from behind them or other allies of theirs. So that's a little bit of an increase there, but the real purpose of it is for when they don't notice you're there. So let's try that when he has the target mark on his head, the token, and then try to use it. So right now he cannot see us fully, so we're going to go ahead and do this. And you notice that he actually got staggered from doing that. That is the real skill of skill 2, is to apply that stagger when the enemy cannot see you. I'm going to try skill 3, or level 3 specifically. A little bit longer range, but that's pretty much about it, and a much bigger shockwave out the other end. Much bigger shockwave. Let's go ahead and take a look at it once again when, let's see if the stagger lasts longer. Stagger does last just a little bit longer. As you can see, when you upgrade the skill, the effect of it and the AoE go up. Now for skill 3, you warp to a set position and you basically go invisible and you have your movement speed up. So this is our movement speed in general, not too fast. Now you see we have this little arrow around us. You will teleport to that spot specifically when you use it. So let's just go to the border over here. Notice we are invisible now. Very short period of time though. The effect of that will go up over time. It does have a pretty decently short cooldown. Only about 8 seconds to actually redo cooldown on the skill. But the skill itself only lasts for, let's see, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, about 4 seconds. So it takes about half the time for it to actually cool down the skill that it does for you to use it. So let's just go ahead and go invisible again. So because we're invisible, we can take advantage of skill 2 and pop him like that. And we can actually reapply this marker again so that he stays invisible, and we can just keep on doing this so long as we actually are applying that death marker right there. We can constantly keep his field of view down. As you can see here, we're at max level with skill 1 and 2. So it's a little bit unfair that we can just keep doing this. But this is something that makes hit very terrifying. Because essentially you can just make somebody not see you for an unheard of amount of time. And even if they do pop out of it, you just do this, go back in, do it again. He is literally a constant assassin. Now let's see how much of a bigger range that level 2 of skill 3 has. Much wider range of teleportation. This is probably the safest to be going into there. The effect does increase though, so it does increase your stealth time. And that's kind of what you want to go for with leveling this up. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi. So about 6 seconds you can stay invisible, which is really handy because it means that you have the ability to go invisible again, essentially, so they cannot see you, and you'll have time for the cooldown effect, which is pretty crazy. You can just keep constantly juggling this effect like infinitely. They don't see you, you knock them out, they find you, just go ahead and do this, pop them again, stun them again, keep them blind, and freaking just, it's absolutely disgusting. It really is disgusting. And you can do this pretty much from a point of almost not, you don't even have to get them at full level. You don't even have to actually get them to the highest level point. But because you don't have to get the skills to max to still benefit from the major part of his abilities, it makes him pretty dangerous early, mid, and late game. Let's go ahead and look at the range at skill 3. At skill 3, it increases how fast and where you can be invisible from. I would honestly say this is his bread and butter. Just constantly doing skill 3 and 2, 3 and 2, 3 and 2, 3 and 2. And then, of course, applying the right-click skill 1 buff constantly back and forth as well. It's pretty disturbing how much of this you can just constantly keep abusing on one enemy. Let's take a look at his super attack, where he essentially automatically applies the fear of death on somebody and lowers their movement speed and decreases their vision even further. So notice when you actually when you apply the mark normally, this is how low it is just naturally. Now when you use the super attack, it applies it again. So he just sees absolutely nothing. But the whole point of the assassin's ability is to basically do the same thing, but in a wider radius. So let's just go ahead and level it up. It does have a bit of a cooldown though, unfortunately. It's probably about a 90-second cooldown, and justly so. Hit in general is pretty kind of OP to a degree. Yeah, about an 85-90-second cooldown. You just disappear essentially automatically. They can't see you or anything. It's honestly kind of a get out of jail free card, but then again, all of his abilities are kind of applied like that. And with constantly lowering their movement speed and their vision, it just makes an easy opening for allies to just pummel them. Now, at level 3, you have a very large radius. This has the ability to essentially knock out the vision of the entire enemy team fight. Mind you, it won't always happen, and it increases your movement speed quite a bit too, so you can kind of run away if you absolutely need to. And I think that's pretty much what you want to actually use the super attack for, is primarily either gaining the upper hand in a team fight, or to escape if absolutely needed. As far as helpers go for hit, it's kind of like an all-arounder thing. There could be several things you could be doing. Shu is a nice little throw-in to know where enemies are going to be at. You can just place Shu down in a random corner so that you're keeping an eye out for where enemies are coming from exactly. And Bubbles I don't think you necessarily need bubbles. You already have an increased amount of movement speed and step efficiency when you go into your invisible state, which you can constantly be going into. So I don't think you need bubbles with hit, but it would just make it easier, I guess. I think Farmer would probably be the most overall best choice, just because it adds a slight bit of confusion. The extra confusion that he does bring to the table of, you know, hits invisible, oh, there's a freaking random helper shooting at me, what else am I looking for? It causes a little bit of pressure that is super easy pressure to apply just as being hit. And then Invisible Man, this is a very untested helper that I have had not very much practice with, that I will be honest with. And I currently don't see too much usefulness for, but perhaps he does have a crazy usefulness for hit, perhaps. But it essentially prevents you and allied heroes from being discovered when within range. Now, it cancels under special conditions as if an affected hero enters an enemy hero's field of view. So basically what this means is that you could place this down on a mini boss and the enemy team will not know you are there. See, when you look at the mini map, you can actually see everyone's character portraits approaching mini boss sites, except for the middle area, of course. And you just kind of know where people are specifically in the main top and bottom lane. But if you place the Invisible Man, you don't. You have no idea where they're at in those specific areas. So for those specific areas, if you placed it down, then you could be actually semi aware of it. I don't think it's as useful as people are probably going to think it is. This is a very gung-ho kind of type of MOBA game, and I don't think Invisible Man has too much, I don't know how to place it, additional points to that. I think the only thing you would do is place it in the middle of the top and bottom lanes during an end game portion and maybe confuse the enemy. So now enough of the rambling, let's just go ahead and move on to skill suggestions. In the skill suggestions, I actually only have one for hit, and it's because of the way he is designed. You can essentially focus whatever way you want to, but the way hit is designed, you just want to abuse the crap out of his skill 3 and skill 2 and just constantly keep disappearing, stunning the enemy, disappearing, stunning the enemies, disappearing, stunning the enemy. It has such a short cooldown that, I mean, it just makes it stupid easy to abuse it. You hit level 4 and you're constantly going in and out of being able to, the enemy not being able to see you. As far as which level you should level up first, that's kind of a tough one, because from what in my personal practice is that skill 3 and skill 2 at level 2 are already enough to be having a high enough range and effect that you can just abuse it. And as long as you have a competent lane partner and team, you can abuse hits so easily that your teammates can easily get kills off just with that. You don't need skill 1's damage. You don't need skill 1 to even like poke people through walls. I know there's a lot of people that love to poke through walls, but aside from catching enemies off guard and applying the death thing when you're not even in view, it doesn't really do much. It does put it puts a lot of pressure on enemies because they don't know where you're at. But that's the thing. If you're aware of hit skills and abilities, and you notice where his skill 1 is coming from, if you know that that hit hits you through a wall that they cannot get around to within the time frame of wherever you are going, it just means you need to press on and continue on. Once you understand hits abilities, you start to understand where to move a little bit more easily. And I think skill 1, poking through walls, does help, but it doesn't help enough. I think popping people constantly with skill 3 and stun locking them with skill 2 is much more beneficial than just a random surprise skill 1 fear of death token. You want to be constantly putting pressure on, and that's what skill 3 and 2 abuse is going to do. You don't need to max out skill 3 right away. If you want to play that way, entirely up to you, you can do that. There's many ways to play this game and many ways to play each of these characters. It is a fast-paced MOBA, so whatever works for you. But personally, I think this is the best way to go about it, which starts at its level 2, go in skill 3, level 3, go to skill 2, and then level 4, go to skill 1, and level 5, go to your super. Essentially getting you level 1 of each of these abilities, and you're able to just kind of abuse every single one of them as soon as possible. I put level 6 into skill 2 first. Skill 2, level 2 first, because you want the stun lock to go longer. That's primarily what you're leveling up skill 2 for, is to get that stun lock to last longer. But with skill 3, you want the wider range of being able to go invisible and disappear to a warp to a different position, so that you can get out of the fight or get out of sight. So this actually takes priority. But then the super also could take priority as well, because it's your get out of jail free card, and it's hurting enemy team fight. It's hurting team fights for them. A lot of skill and technical usage with this character. But anyways, my point is that I think skill 1 has the least priority, and then super has the second least priority. It's primarily skill 3 and skill 2 that you want to get up as pretty much as soon as possible. But you do still need skill 1 to be able to keep juggling the combo that I showed earlier in the abilities. Now, as far as his card suggestions go, I do have quite a few different builds. Sometimes the card builds can actually change just how much the character can perform to a large degree. Now, this top build right here is more of a kind of cooldown heavy build, and a more strategic one for you to not necessarily kill the enemy, but absurdly obstruct them. With level 1 being strategic escape, essentially you're locking in the ability to run away after you have stunned them and hit them, and recycling your 3, 2, 1 skills. And even if they get to you, you actually get to stun them again. You have the ability to have barrier to save you if they manage to, well, pop some skills and super attacks on you. And then with level 3 being the vanish, the limit breaking jump, so you can do a double dodge out of there as soon as possible. Not to mention them both being 2 blue cards in here, it dramatically lowers your cooldown to be able to continuously spam your 3, 2, 1 skills. The next build is more for damage focused, and it's being a little bit more careful, but at the same time taking more advantage of situations. Hit is one of the few units in the game where you can probably get away with not dying an entire fight so long as you're careful enough, so Snowball definitely will help with that increased damage. And then Giant Slayer to start off a huge amount of damage lowering, on top of that with going invisible and etc. And I just threw in double jump for the level 3 just to have a little bit of an escape tool right there. Now, as far as for a second set of builds, it's not really too much there. I do think there's only one more set, which would be you can change level 1 from the strategic escape to a Gekishin High. Gekishin High is used primarily, obviously, for destroying towers. It lowers your cooldown so that you can do that. Hit already has absurdly low cooldowns, and he can easily go destroy towers. It is not difficult for him. He has his skill 3 to just disappear off of the map and run away and just easily sneak around enemies to get to towers and destroy them super fast when they're not paying attention. If there's a tower destroyer in this game other than Frieza, then it is definitely Hit. So Gekishin High is definitely a nice way to go as well for this unit. Alright guys, I think that's going to be it for Hit. He is pretty honestly a straightforward unit. He is super technical on how you play him specifically. You'll have to get used to how his skills are applied. I suggest practicing the 3-2-1 combo. But yeah, do let me know how you decide to build and use Hit's skills and cards down below. Just because I suggest it doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. In fact, it's probably not the best way because I'm not a pro player, so... but anyways, let me know down in the comments what you think and what works for you, and I hope you have a good day and a good night.